Thank you very much. That was my first time seeing that video, and I assure you it makes me look cooler than I actually am. I'm always very humbled, and I'm very grateful to be invited to the UNIV assembly. I think I know why I'm invited here, because I have 6 daughters. So being around women is a very normal thing in my house. Occasionally I get to sneak away and talk to some of the men as well, but it's very exciting to be here. The other day, my 3-year-old was watching a cartoon with little cartoon ponies and asked me, "Dad, which one are you?" And she already told me that the others had all picked out. Grace was the green one, and Lucy was the yellow one. She was the pink one. Which one was I? And I think I said I was the blue one. But what was interesting is the human ability to have empathy with whatever is on screen. There's an interesting connection that we have when we watch movies. And some people think that it's not entirely unique to the human condition, the human race. I do, but I think what is unique, absolutely, to the human race is that we understand metaphor, even though that we may empathize with a character on screen that's like us, a human or an animal. We also can show empathy to a red balloon, lost, looking for his owner. We also can show empathy to a hopping lamp that doesn't have any eyes at all. So I think that's a very curious fact about humans. Well, when preparing for this talk, immediately a strange phrase jumped into my mind. The phrase is in medias res. It's a Latin phrase that means in the middle of things. It's a phrase I first heard in a film class at University of Southern California, and the term means beginning a movie in the middle of things. And I always thought that was an exciting technique that I liked in movie making. It's not just in movie making, in a lot of literature. Beginning the character in the middle of the story is a very good way to suck the audience in, to pull them closer. Both in some of our oldest forms of literature, the Odyssey, the story of Ulysses begins with him waking up on the island of Calypso, and only later you learn his backstory as he's trying to get home. A more modern example are the James Bond movies. They always start with James Bond in medias res, in the middle of the action, leaving the audience to ask questions and to put the pieces together. So why this phrase jumped out to me is because the idea of putting the viewer in the present, putting them in the now, is very relevant, not just to film, but on a universal level. I like this phrase, or I think of a lot of things in terms of the great middle. Our universe, our reality is divided up into many extremes, to contrasts: black, white, night and day, the past, the future. And too often we forget to be living in balance. And going back to the Greeks, they believed that living in balance brought us closer to a harmony with life, harmony with nature, with our fellow human beings. So even the Greeks had a definition of virtue that involved living in the middle, the middle of the extremes. So bravery is actually the middle between being a coward and running away, or being foolish and being the first to just blindly run into battle. So many of the virtues strike this middle way. Someone we've heard of here at this conference, St. Josemaria, used to like to say that we should be contemplatives in the middle of the world. We're in the world. We live in the middle of the world, in the streets, and we interact with people every day. We have to put up with real things, children crying, fighting, or coworkers, or temptations in the world that may pull us to one extreme or another. So even though I work heavily in the digital media for 20 years now, my inspiration doesn't come from things that are digital. These things are just boxes, dumb boxes. And I say dumb because they don't get bored. They're so dumb, they're going to continue to work on a computer formula forever and never worry or wonder what's outside. So these things are built to serve our needs. Too often, it is us who become the servants to these boxes. So my inspiration does not come from anything digital, but from ordinary life. Another phrase that struck out to me was digital innovation, ordinary inspiration. The idea that everything I am inspired by comes from the most simple moments. Playing with my daughters in the backyard, gardening, fixing a bicycle, going to the zoo, but often in prayer and in silence and in Mass. I try to always, of course, pay attention to the Mass, but the back of my mind is bubbling away with all kinds of distractions. And I once asked a priest, I said, Father, I'm having trouble staying focused in the Mass. I'm so distracted by everything that's going on during the day. He said, put all that up on the altar. That is what should be offered up for today. Everything that you're feeling, even the little dumb computer problems, put them up on the altar and offer those up to our Lord. I'm sure you've seen many of these pictures. My wife had sent these to me. I think her spiritual director sent them to her, and they're wonderful. They're very, very telling about what our daily life has become. We've all been part of these kind of moments, and it's hard to keep a human touch in the middle of this digital age. So first and foremost, I would recommend put the iPhone down. Not always, but it seems to make sense to have moments of the day that you don't have it. You know, we're not eating all day long, or we shouldn't be. We're not sleeping all day long. The iPhone is just one aspect of life. It shouldn't be under our pillow when we go to sleep. Here's some friends enjoying a day together near the beach. Here's someone enjoying watching sports. Some friends enjoying a nice dinner. A wonderful date. Best friends. At the museum. And sightseeing. Albert Einstein said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." Very wise man. So there should be this balance, as I said. One of my favorite stories, actually, is about technology and about St. Josemaria. Someone who knew him once told me a story that he liked to call people on the phone occasionally. He would dial a number, and when the person would answer, he would say, "Why did you call me?" to the person he just called. And of course, it was somewhat humorous. The person was confused, but ultimately, it would lead to St. Josemaria inviting someone over for a get-together or for some gathering of some sort. And I thought that was a very playful use of technology. He wasn't intimidated by this stuff, and kind of using it in a way, ultimately, to help others, to draw others to God. So, but on another occasion, I heard a story when people wanting to record St. Josemaria were trying to get the tape recorder working, and it kept failing. And they said, "Oh, excuse me, Father, can you restart your talk?" And he said, "Forget it." He said, "Just stop. I don't want this to be recorded. Let's just keep moving on." And I thought that was an example of him not letting the technology get in the way of his purpose of serving others. So here, I believe he had a very balanced understanding and use of technology. I'm going to try to get through some of these quickly. I know I talk a lot. And this is just some more examples of films that I've worked on. But actually, I think the compilation done up there is a much better example. But these are different films I've worked on throughout my career. Good story. Well, even though most of what I do is helping make other people's stories, truthfully, the world needs more good stories. There is a hunger in the human condition to hear a good story. And what makes a good story good? That could be a very